And then BYU beats Sam Houston in their opener in the Big 12 era at home 14-0. But that win left folks going,
Yeah.
what's up?
We're here to answer your questions.
Like right off the bat. Was it Amber that said what's going on with the offense?
A
I can't
number
remember
of
who it
folks.
was, but a number of folks going, what's going on with the offense? We'll get into that a little bit.
Sports. Let's dive into that football game.
Sure.
It's on everybody's mind. If you have a question for us and we haven't answered it, just ask us. That's what this live stream is all about. The Cougars win 14-0 in front of 59,000 fans, 17th largest opening weekend crowd in all of college football, and the first day of school at BYU wasn't until today. So even before The Rock was there, The Rock was there. And it was fun atmosphere once the fireworks went going. And we had a lot of expectation for a lot of things. And let's start with the defense, with the most changes in the offseason, with the entire defensive staff except for Gennaro Guilford. And Jay Hill promised a new attitude, a new approach. And the team went out and got their first shutout in 9 years.
Yeah, I thought that the defense was better than expected because – not just because we knew that there were some guys over there that could run and play and hit and all that. But sometimes when you install a whole brand new defense, it takes a little bit of time to get the execution level up. But I haven't seen the grades yet. My expectation is that the grades for this defense overall are going to be really high. And so that was the thing I was most impressed with. First shutout in 9 years. Remember, only 5 teams posted shutouts on opening weekend. That's BYU, Oklahoma, Syracuse, Kansas State, and Georgia Southern. So a lot of teams played so-called inferior opponents in week 1, but only 5 teams in the entire country pitched a shutout. So that's a big, big deal.
I was impressed on third downs, and we're going to get right to the offense, Jeff, in just a second. I was impressed on third downs, which was a troubled down last year, especially in the big games. They couldn't get off the field. But this group against Sam Houston, but it's an opponent trying to move the ball, and they were just 2 of 14 on third downs. That's a winning combination right there.
Right, and they only allowed 3.2 yards per play. They forced 10 punts in this game. Maybe most impressive, because I feel like this is one of the great predictors in college football for wins or losses. They were +3 in turnover margin. They had 3 picks in that first game. And how about the fact that it was two by Jacob Robinson, who plays corner, and then 1 by Eddie Heckard, who plays corner or nickel. A lot of your interceptions come from safeties in the back end on things overthrown. When your corners are getting picks, you know those guys are ballers. And I was so very impressed with those 2 corners in this first game. And they, BYU ends up +3 in turnover margin. If BYU's +3 in turnover margin every game this year, they'll win 10 games. You just win games when you're +3 in turnover margin. And this is a game that the offense didn't play particularly well, and they still won because it was a shutout and because the defense forced 3 turnovers and the offense took care of the ball.
Those 10 punts were nice that they forced.
Yes.
We didn't love seeing 9 from BYU's side. And we're going to ask David Nixon coming up here in a few minutes about the linebacker play, which was outstanding.
Yes.
With Bywater and Thule back healthy and on the field, combining for 18 tackles. A.J. Vongpachang, the newcomer, kind of a quiet night, but as a whole, Sam Houston couldn't do anything. And that's how you shut a team out for 4 quarters.
Yeah, BYU did a great job of just holding people down. And the leading rusher for Sam Houston, John Gentry, averaged 2.4 yards a carry, and their second leading rusher, who was their quarterback last year, was their quarterback in this game, 2.2 yards per carry. So when you hold the top 2 rushing threats to 2.4 and 2.2, you're doing something with defending the run. And when you hold a team to 185 yards of total offense, you're going to win a lot of games doing that. And this offense is going to come around. It wasn't very productive in this game. But, man, I was really impressed with that defense.
Let's talk about the offense and get to a number of questions. Raymond just subscribed. Thanks, Raymond. And his most disappointing – Raymond's right on there, and he's in with a comment. Most disappointing thing about the game was the offensive line play. I'm going to the Kansas game. What color should I wear? I think it's royal. I think you always wear royal on the road.
Do they always wear royal on the road? I don't know. You know what? As we get close to that week, BYU usually announces if there's anything unique that they're going to do. Like last week, they striped the stadium
Yeah.
with sections white and blue, which looked really cool. And I thought BYU, not only did the defense execute, but I thought the fans executed that pretty well,
Looked
right?
sharp. Looked sharp. All right, Raymond, we'll get to it in just a second. Let's run through some of the numbers. Keaton Slovis was 20 of 33. Didn't throw any interceptions, 145 yards. He had 2 touchdown runs. Coming into the game, he'd never had a touchdown run in his career, and he ran both in, one from the 6 and the other he was kind of pushed in from the goal line. And one thing that was lost in all of it was he exceeded 10,000 yards for his career in passing, most of those coming from USC and Pittsburgh. But he got 145 from BYU, and now he's up over 10,000. That's a lot, and he was the first to tell us after the game he wasn't too happy.
Yeah, in the press conference they asked him to evaluate his performance, and he said, "I'm not that great," because he just expects more. And if you look, his completion percentage was fine, right? He didn't throw any picks. That's a big deal. He had the 2 rushing touchdowns, just the first 2 of his career. That was great. But he knows that they weren't explosive enough in the pass game. His average yards per pass just wasn't enough. They needed to be able to push the ball up the field. They need to get explosive plays. You have to have a number of run plays that are 15 yards plus, few of those every game. And he needs some pass plays that are 20 yards plus. Yeah. Big chunk plays to excite the offense, to flip the field, to get the crowd excited, and to score points, right? And they just couldn't do it. The longest play from scrimmage was a 21-yard run by LJ in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what you want. And so I think Keaton's thinking, I need to go back and look at the film. We need to see what routes we were running, where I was looking, what reads I was making, and figure out a way to push the ball up the field a little bit more. And they also have got to figure out how to get more production on first down. They weren't bad in the fourth quarter, but at that point they were just running the clock out. But you got to get ahead of the chains.
Aaron Roderick on Coordinator's Corner on BYU TV on Monday talked about, and I think we're all feeling it. I think everyone in Cougar Nation was feeling it. It's like, what? Why didn't we even try anything? Where was, especially in the second half, it was just a giant scoop of vanilla ice cream. And he said, they were so bugged, they were so inefficient in doing anything. I think he was mad at the line. He's mad at the receivers. He's mad at a whole lot of things that he just said, you know what, at one point in the third quarter, it became our job to win the game. So he said he knew the defense wasn't going to give up any points. So they just ran the ball and took care of the football. And that's why LJ Martin had 16 carries. If Robbins had 16 carries or Smith had 16 carries, that had a lot more yards than they had. But the freshman comes in and sets a BYU freshman record for a debut with 16 carries for 91 yards. And he got it back to back to back to back in that second half. And I was interested because it was almost like everyone was mad. They said, that's it. We're going back to practice. Let's get this game over with and make sure we don't lose it.
Well, and there's a couple of things that really cost them offensively. We talk about that lack of first down production. So they get behind the chains. They did try to throw a couple of vertical routes, so just streaks, just guys running straight down the field, and they weren't able to hook up. And I attribute that a little bit to the fact that you don't have Keanu Hill, who's probably your best deep threat on the team, big guy that can go get it. And Cody Epps, who turns quick throws into big plays, was also not playing in that game. And it seems like in practice, when we were watching deep balls being thrown, it always seemed to be Keanu Hill or Chase Roberts on the other side. And Chase had a couple of nice catches in this game, but I would expect both of those guys to be back this week, and maybe that chemistry comes back with them.
Well, if you think Isaac Rex just had 2 catches, so basically no Hill, no Epps, and so little Rex. Yes. And those are your 3 big weapons. And so, you just kind of everyone left scratching their head, and they're still scratching their head here on Tuesday going, what did we just see?
You can learn a lot because it's the first time they've played against a real team with a real defense, a team that's noted for very good defense. Team bringing 16 red shirts back off of the red shirt year that were starters the year before, and that's a team that the 2 previous years had gone 22-1 and won a national championship in the FCS. So a team that hangs their hat on defense. So everybody knew they were going to be pretty good, but they're not that good to shut BYU down. And so BYU's got to do a better job. And then in the run game on first down, seems like they're running a lot of outside stretch and some stuff where the running backs are going lateral. And the offensive line had some miscommunications and had some free players come through. The running backs probably didn't put their foot in the ground and time it out well to get up the field. when LJ Martin came in at the end of the game, excuse me, he did a really good job and they called plays for him to run more downhill. And it seemed like that offensive line was a little more comfortable running the inside zone or running a counter or a power where they could play a little more downhill and use their physicality.
And maybe Sam Houston was a little tired too.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen, like should happen with Southern Utah, even though they play at elevation higher than BYU. BYU should be the bigger, more physical team. So first down production has got to get better. They got to get more chunk plays. And then the penalties, they just seem to come in inopportune times. They finally would get ahead of the chains and have a 3rd and 3, convert on 3rd and 3, and they'd have a penalty, and they'd bring it back. And then it was 3rd and long. And they had that happen a number of times. BYU ends up with 8 penalties for 66 yards in that game. But it seemed more like the timing than the number.
Yeah, it took them out of drives.
Right. Drive-killing penalties.
After Slovis went down in 5 plays, scored a touchdown, they get the ball back. They drove inside the 30-yard line and then a 15-yard penalty. Next possession, same thing, driving down a 15-yard penalty. And now without really anything going on offense, suddenly 3rd and 18 is something that a short pass was thrown on, which was a kind of a head scratcher. It's just the whole night was like, well, defense was great. What is going on? And now let's get to Raymond's question about the offensive line. Coming in the offensive line, it's 8, 9 guys deep. There's a lot of NFL talent on that front group. We expected, as did everybody, that line to just pound poor Sam Houston. But Sam Houston had some stout guys up front, especially in the nose, that gave
the guy named Meatball.
Miley a
His
lot of trouble.
His nickname's Meatball.
Yeah, when you're going up against the Meatball. But the struggles, as I observed, and we'll get your opinion, and Raymond certainly has his because we were all watching it, the inability to dominate that line of scrimmage frustrated Robbins and Smith early on in the run game. And then when Slovis did drop back to try some deep balls, he got nailed right after he released the ball, and we did not expect to see that.
Right.
So how do you fix that?
It's really good for offensive linemen now to have a chance to go back and watch film, especially when they're running if they're running outside zone stretch. Remember, that's not a play where they go straight downhill and just go attack the defense. They start running slightly downhill at an angle to the sideline, right? And the idea is that you take that defense and you stretch them out and create seams, and then your running backs cut through those seams. There are multiple times in this game where as they're stretching that out, there's a little bit of miscommunication, and all of a sudden they get somebody that comes through a gap that should not have been created, or somebody gets a little too wide. You can go back and watch film on that, and you can really shore that up. And I think we might have been spoiled a little bit, Dave. When you had Tyler Algier playing running back, a guy that just rushed for 1,000 yards in the National Football League, that's the elite of the elite. We get a little bit spoiled. Those holes didn't have to be that big for Tyler Algier. He'd put his foot in the ground and just go break tackles and make big plays. This line last night seemed to me that they were more comfortable when they said, hey, you guys double right here on the nose and combo to the backer, and let's go downhill and play downhill and just be physical and come off the ball and fire off the ball rather than let's stretch them out. And sometimes in that first game, your offensive coordinator learns about what type of offensive line he has. Like, okay, we thought they'd be good at everything. They're clearly better at this than they are at that. I need to call a little bit more of this. We need to be better with communication at that. I expect you're going to see that offensive line take a big jump forward because they have talent.
Yeah.
They're big, they're athletic, they're physical. They just need to be in the right spots and use the right technique and understand how to communicate with one another.
I think they'd be angry. I would think they'll come out angry.
They're going to come out with something to prove this
because
next week.
They see the film. They actually see more film than we see, where it goes, hey, Kingsley, you were in the wrong spot here, here, and here, and it's up to Kingsley to go fix it. He's a projected first-round NFL lineman, and that's on him. And there were some mistakes on this guy and they break it down individually. And so I would think they would just be all bugged heading out, and that's a good sign for what we would expect to be an attack style on offense on Saturday.
Yeah, and here's the thing: there were some really good plays that like if you just watched After Further Review, which just was on at 5:00 right before we started in, we highlighted a play toward the end of the show. In fact, the longest play from scrimmage, that 21-yard run by LJ Martin. The offensive line did a phenomenal job on that play. They combo blocked on the nose and knocked him off the ball. Then the guard slid down and picked up the linebacker and sealed him off. The wide receiver blocking downfield. Kingsley did a great seal block outside. So there's some really good learning, teaching moments from things they did well. And there's a lot of good teaching moments from things they didn't do well. The key is this a coachable group? Do they get better? And then they've got one more week to get a lot better, because Southern Utah is going to be similar in talent to Sam Houston, right? And they went down and held their own. They played really well against Arizona State. So I would say similar in talent to Sam Houston. In fact, Southern Utah beat Sam Houston at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Right?
17-7.
So very similar in talent, right? So we should see BYU markedly improved, and we can compare scores on those two. They're very similar, right? But then the next week they're not similar.
Right.
Because Arkansas is better at every single position on the defense compared to those two teams. So BYU's got one more week to get a lot better. So
I'm interested in watching it. As soon as we walked out of the stadium on Saturday night, I was like, I am looking forward to next Saturday afternoon, because the offense that we saw is not BYU's offense, and I'm eager to see it. I'm eager to see Slovis slinging it around, as is everybody else. I'm eager to see that big offensive line protecting him and opening holes for our 6'3", 235-pound running back.
Yeah, and I think they're capable, but they have got to knuckle down, and they've got to learn from what they didn't do well. And they've got, again, they need to learn from what they did well. They need to go, okay. And I think Aaron learns from that too, and he goes, you know what? We're pretty good at this. Like when we ran this type of play, these guys executed it well. I need to figure out how to do some different formations to give a different look and run that same play. And let's adapt this offense to what we're really, really good at. So, hey, I didn't even know people could see my bare feet. So Joel Harris from up in Kaysville, go Darts. Yeah. There's my I must have been putting them up, but
there they are.
Hey, that's the beauty of this show. I can wear my Fenway Park T-shirt. I have shorts on.
Let's just be glad he's got a shirt on
my
tonight.
favorite footwear is none at all. That's my favorite footwear.
We're going to hear from Kalani in just a minute. One area that did shine, another area, because the defense was certainly on par, with special teams. Ryan Rico had 9 punts, 52.3-yard average. His long was 65. He set a school record with 7 punts over 50 yards. The Co-Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week. So the first possible honor for BYU as a Big 12 team after week 1. We got a Cougar in there, and that's Ryan Rico. And he was also assisted by Marcus McKenzie, who flew downfield, made some electrifying tackles. That's going to be interesting. Whenever BYU punts, just know that Rico's going to bomb it, and then just watch McKenzie to see how fast he gets downfield as the gunner to take out the returner.
Yeah, Dave Nixon earlier today on our AFR show said, yeah, Marcus better get ready, because after that performance, he's going to get double teamed as the gunner out there. And the gunner are the gunners are the two outside guys that you put on the outside on your punt, and you just free release them, and you just tell them, you run full speed down and make a play. And you don't tell them, hey, you have containment, you've got to break down. You tell those guys, no, you run as fast as you can get down there and go try to contact that guy. And if he bounces outside you or inside you, that's okay. Because we have people responsible for the edge, and we have people responsible for their lanes. Your job is to be the first guy to get down there. McKenzie was phenomenal, one of the best I've seen in years for BYU. It helps that he's the state record holder in 100 meters.
Does help.
He's probably in that 10.4, 10.5 range in the 100 meters. And speed is phenomenal, but sometimes speed doesn't translate to the field. Sometimes you hear about these great track athletes, and you put a bunch of pads on them, and you put them out on the field, and they certainly don't run a 10.500 meters on the field. This dude was running a 10.500 meters on the field. Nobody could block him. And he was chasing those bombs that Rico kept hitting down the field and making plays, play after play after play. And I haven't been so impressed with a punt cover guy in years.
Listen, that is an interesting tandem, because we're going into a league where BYU's not going to score every time they touch the ball, because they're going up against great teams that play defense. TCU doesn't play a lot of defense, but maybe they will when
they proved
we're
that
there.
Yesterday, right?
But you've got a weapon that can flip the field in any situation with Rico. And maybe more so this year than in years past. I think we're going to appreciate that. a lot more. And to have that guy who's an NFL-type punter, now he's going to get enough punts this year to actually qualify. He's in the top 5, I think, nationally after week 1. But him bombing it and guys like McKenzie down there, that's a key area of the team that may be underappreciated for the last couple of years. Not this year, because this year they're going to need a guy who can bomb it, and he can, and he's ready.
Let me give you a little glimpse into the future on Marcus McKenzie, because this is fun too. So Marcus, just a freshman, worked his way up and running with the 2s and 3s at corner, right? And he's just a young guy, so he's got to learn how to play that position and the defense and all that, because his head's swimming a little bit. To be a gunner, you just put him out there and just let him take advantage of his athleticism. But the other number 3 at corner is another freshman. So the 2 freshman corner, Marcus McKenzie and then Johnson is the other one. They're both world-class sprinters. Like, they're both really, really fast. They're both 10.5 and under 100-meter dash guys. And so down the road at some point, whether that's next year or the year after, you're going to have 2 corners starting at BYU that can run with anybody in the country. And I mean, Alabama, you name it, Georgia, they don't have receivers that can just blow by those 2 corners. When have we had 2 corners at BYU that fast? And not only are they that fast, you saw from McKenzie that he's actually not just a track guy, he's a football player.
Yeah.
And so the future at corner looks really bright, but let me also tell you, the present at corner also looks amazing right now.
Looking forward to seeing him Saturday.
With Robinson and Eddie Heckard out there. That was good corner play on Saturday. Really good corner play.
Hey, in just like 20 minutes, we picked up 9 new subscribers on YouTube.
You guys are the best. Thanks.
We're trying to get to 2,000 tonight. Why not? And we're closing in. We have 1,989. So call your friends. And if you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. But flip over to YouTube. It's free. Subscribe to us. It's free. And then you can come back to Facebook or Twitch or however you're taking us in. Let's see if we can get to 2,000. Thank you so much. This is a fun show, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And please continue to let us know your questions about the game and where you are watching from tonight. We'll try to give everybody a shout-out. Let's listen to Coach Sitake for a couple of minutes. Here's how he kicked off the week, his assessment of the 14-point performance on Saturday and looking ahead to Southern Utah. So let's listen to that, and then we'll react to it. Head coach Kalani Sitake.
I'm really excited about week 2. We're sitting at 1-0 and feeling good about it. Obviously, there's some performance that we wish we could have back, but definitely some learning moments for our team and specifically for our offense. But learning moments for all 3 phases, for special teams, offense, and defense. Happy that we got the win. That's the first and foremost. That's the most important goal. But I'm also happy with a lot of the performance that we saw from individual players. Obviously, we'd like to see more points on the board, and we'd like to have more PATs rather than punts. But when looking at it from being able to watch it and evaluate film, and talk to the coaches and players, very fixable things where we can be in a better position to have more success in all 3 phases. And we feel like the mistakes, the miscues, and not be able to take advantage of opportunities were costly, but things are very fixable. Usually when things like this happen in the week 1, there's a lot of unknowns. We know a little bit more now, and things that we can focus on to help us will be very fixable. Things that dealing with execution, assignment, sound football, mistakes like drive-killing penalties and things like that, we can really fix. And so looking forward to this week. We've seen our guys perform better as a team. So it's not like we're completely happy with 2 phases and upset with 1. All 3 phases are looking to improve, and we need to make that big jump of improvement from week 1 to week 2. We're really looking forward to the prep this week. So I'll take any questions that you guys have. And before that, I'll mention that we are playing Southern Utah this weekend. Well-coached team. Coach Fitzgerald does a great job. They're really tough. We've seen he's been there for a while. We've had one of our analysts that was a offensive coordinator there, so they're very familiar with our scheme. We know that there's players that have left us that have been on that team on the defensive side as well. So really familiar with them, being an in-state team, seeing them play quite a bit, and watched them against Arizona State, play a close game with them, and losing a close one, 24-21. So definitely have our attention. A lot of respect for them. I coach down there, so my oldest child was born in Cedar City. So we have a lot of fond memories of the T-Bird program, and looking forward to them being up here in LaVell Edwards Stadium, and just looking forward to the matchup, looking for an opportunity for us to play again. And just really want to compliment the Rock, our student section, and the rest of Cougar Nation that were in the stadium, at LaVell Edwards Stadium. For a lot of our newcomers, the electricity and the energy was a definite positive for us. I know Jay Hills mentioned it before that it was he didn't realize how much of an advantage it is. So having them there, the fans there with so much energy, we appreciate them. We're looking forward to getting even more electrifying with more performance in all three phases. So hopefully we can get that done this weekend. So thank you. Take any questions.
Before we react to that, I wrote an article in the Deseret News today comparing BYU's first game performance to a first date. You can read that at Deseret.com. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but it felt like it did.
You said it, we haven't had a chance to read it yet.
It felt like it did.
I'll read it tonight for
so
sure.
Check that out. And your reaction to what Kalani, one thing that, he included the three phases, but there was a giant message there sent to the offensive side.
Yeah, he has made no bones about it, and he's pretty transparent, and the team knows that. That's what they love about him, and he wants them to score more points. And I'm certain that the very first thing he said to Aaron Roderick is, hey, listen, it's all great. We learned some stuff. It's really good to learn and not lose, right? There's so much more to be had from learning when you win a game than losing and winning a game, right? And so he's going to hold them accountable, and he knows that if they're going to have any success in this league, the Big 12 is a league where teams can score. They're not going to shut out a bunch of teams in the Big 12. Nobody's going to shut out a bunch of teams in the Big 12. I mean, did you get a glimpse of Oklahoma this week?
Yeah, Texas.
For Pete's sakes. Even TCU lost, but they certainly didn't have any struggles moving the football and scoring in the 40s. And so that's that league.
Yeah.
And so you have got to be potent offensively, and I'm certain he's a little concerned about that, but knows that there's some things that they can do. I do like him saying that we can't just go, hey, the defense was great, let's sit on the laurels. We were talking earlier today about the fact that the pressure could be better. It needs to get a step further. They need to be a step quicker defensively. I thought that, I don't know if the corners can get better. They were lights out in this game.
And right? Linebackers were solid.
Safeties graded out good. Backers were really good. But when they brought pressure, they ended up getting 1 sack and 7 hurries. I'd like to see that be 3 or 4 sacks and 3 or 4 hurries, right? Figure out a way to get there just a little bit quicker and actually get to the quarterback against a team that's that level. And so there's some little things they can do. They had only just a couple of blown assignments. They ran a zone blitz and let a throw go over the middle. The good news is they didn't have any what I would call like fatal errors. They make a mistake, they give up a chunk play, but they make a tackle and they don't give up a score. And if you can manage points like that, you're in good shape. And he talked about some adjustments on special teams. Yeah, I think that somebody mentioned earlier in our chat that they used up their fake punts for the year. They don't need to do another one of those.
No more fake punts.
Don't need to do any more of those.
No one
right?
wants to see that. No.
And so yeah, it's Kalani always talks about we've got to get better every single week. And so even though it seemed like that defense played a pretty solid football game, he's not going to sit there and go, that was perfect. They're going to find all the things they can get better at. And I love the way Kalani teaches, this whole staff teaches, because they're also going to really point out the things that they did well and have them continue to grow in those areas. To say, man, this was really, really good. Everybody watch this. This is how we have to get it done. Or this was almost perfect. What would make this perfect? So you learn from the good things that you do and you learn from the bad things that you do. And And Kalani does a great job of pointing those out and keeping the players motivated. And there's a lot to learn from offensively in this last game.
BYU TV's game day starts at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. That's Saturday morning. We'll be live from LaVell Edwards Stadium with 2 hours of pregame coverage leading to kickoff between BYU and Southern Utah at 1 o'clock Mountain on ESPN Plus, with the live postgame show back on BYU TV as soon as it's over. Jacob Robinson, we'll sit down with him on game day. We'll also hear from LJ Martin's parents who are in town. Met them today. They were over at the BYU TV broadcast studios. So that's Saturday. By the way, and David Nixon's going to join us in just a second, BYU's coming out in all Navy on Saturday for the first time. And here's what it's going to look like. You got Navy hats, tops, bottoms, and you see the graphic there that the BYU uniform tracker put out on Twitter. Last warn, never.
Never is right.
So we're going to see a lot of
Even Navy face masks, right? So
I think it's going to be a cool look, and I imagine Southern Utah will come out and they're all whites, and so it'll be a clash of colors at the stadium on Saturday afternoon. Remind you, after further review, tonight's show, we previewed Southern Utah and we reviewed Sam Houston, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we think you'll find it enjoyable. You can watch it anytime on the BYU TV app.